What is going on, YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the Scene Mixtape by brokeNCYDE. Basically, this project came out in mid 2008, and it was a free project, and it was kind of a kickoff to brokeNCYDE. They did drop an album in 2007 called The Broken, and they had a bunch of songs like on MySpace and stuff. But this is kind of where they were starting. This is kind of where they were starting to cement their catalog and that type of stuff. They dropped a number of projects called BC13, which I'm going to get to some of those. There's an album called BC13. There's a couple EPs called BC13, and then there's a mixtape, or there's a remix EP called BC13. So there's a lot of BC13 mixtapes that kind of came out. So brokeNCYDE actually dropped like 4 or 5 projects in 2008 before they got to their major label debut. I'm not a fan, but the kids like it from 2009. So that was their breakthrough. But they did a lot of stuff just between MySpace and the internet rap and this overall kind of this more social media type stuff. This early kind of social media gems as far as that sort of stuff kind of went back in 2007 and 2008. And I really like some of this stuff because some of these songs are kind of early versions of the stuff that wound up on their 2009 album. It's pretty catchy. Like I was looking, I mean, just because there's not really a Wikipedia article about this project, there's not a ton of information about it, and I couldn't really find this mixtape to download either. I don't know if the links have been pulled, but it wasn't on DatPiff and some of those type places. I've searched for a while, but it's just kind of tough to find. So I would definitely say we need to get this mixtape distributed and get it back up and about to be downloaded and that type of stuff. I would have to say, yeah, there's some early type songs on here like Get Crunk and Schizo and Freaks, and I looked to see if there was any songs from The Broken on here, but these are all new songs. The Scene Mixtape has all new songs on here, minus the fact that some of them later wound up being on I'm Not a Fan, but the Kids Like It from 2009 and BC13. So those projects, you can find some of these, but according to how I reviewed them in the order that I did, this is kind of some new stuff. Now, I kind of question how I'm going to review BC13, those projects, just because some of those songs are on this mixtape. So I would basically be reviewing it again. And YouTube's kind of distorted as far as being able to get the BC13, just because not everyone knows about them. They're kind of off the side and they're just kind of sporadic in terms of like their promotion and just in terms of the attention that they got. So it's just kind of back and forth about how much I would have to say about those, but I am going to at least try to get those taken care of. But yeah, there's just a bunch of kind of like stuff on here. There's a bunch of stuff on here, so I'm just going to go ahead and I mean, I could talk about this. Like, this is a pretty captivating project. They do some stuff on here which I didn't realize. They do kind of have like some shreds of horrorcore in here. They're definitely kind of Lil Jon oriented crunkcore type sound, and they just have like some LMFAO and they kind of have some LMFAO and 303 and Flow Rida type vibes also, and kind of like early EDM, but just kind of early 2010s, late 2000s kind of club type music where you were pounding shots at clubs and that type of stuff and going to dance clubs and raves and that sort of thing. So it's just kind of a good amalgamation and mixture. They've always had like a good theme towards the approach and the lane that they were kind of in. And the fact that this mixtape was free just really evaluates that concept quite well. This really happens to kind of be a thing. It's just an overall effectual type stuff that kind of went along with it. So I would have to say, yeah, I mean, I definitely, if you can find this mixtape, I would definitely say to kind of fuck around and download it, just because a lot of these songs are pretty effectual. There are some good club bops on here. There are some dark ruminating songs. They're kind of, I mean, an extra valve that I don't remember them showing off on like their 2009 album, I'm Not a Fan, but the Kids Like It, is just these ruminating songs. And I feel like The Broken from 2007, from what I remember reviewing that album last year, that one was a lot more schizophrenic and a lot more kind of ragey, kind of stuffy, kind of rock rages type stuff, where it had a lot more kind of like ravenous kind of energy and just a lot more kind of stuffiness and just kind of caginess towards it. But this one really kind of takes on the crunkcore kind of vibe with adding like some horrorcore mixes. So they just have some new tricks that they kind of have on this particular project that you kind of showcase some of these things where it's kind of an amalgamation of kind of like a nightlife and a day life. In the daytime, they kind of ruminate and kind of have that creepy, emo, kind of moody type feel. And in the night, they're kind of ravenous, demon time party animals. So it's just kind of a good mixture of getting both of those concepts. Now, there weren't really singles on this project apart from Freaks, but I'll go ahead and talk about I'm going to go ahead and recommend these songs. So there's 10 songs on this project that I recommend to you, plus 3 songs that are earlier editions of songs that are on other projects, and then there's 1 almost song. So it's a lot of differential type stuff. So that really would result in about 14 songs out of 16 that I recommend. There's only really 2 songs out of those that I don't recommend. But to kind of talk about these, I'm going to talk about the songs that are on other projects first. So that would be Freaks, Schizo, and Get Crunk, which are all on brokeNCYDE's 2009 album. I'm not a fan, but the kids like it. So Freaks is a lot more kind of schizophrenic. This one just kind of has a lot more kind of stuffy type vibe. It definitely has that kind of craziness, but I feel like the one on the 2009 album was just a lot more electronic and kind of more of like a glitzy kind of Friday night type feel. This one's just kind of more of like a low key kind of really stuffy and schizophrenic kind of cagey kind of club craze towards it. This feels a lot more kind of breathy, and this has a lot more breathiness towards it as far as that kind of goes. Just a lot more kind of confined kind of space, and just kind of more elbows to elbows type stuff as far as that kind of goes. It's more of like a kind of smaller, kind of more packed type club in that sort of sense. Not quite as roomy as like the one, and just kind of more of like a crazy night. I feel like Freaks from 2009 on that album was a lot more of like a kind of 303 and LMFAO type craziness, just with pounding shots. But this one's just kind of more of like a kind of this kind of has more of like the crunk type edge towards it, and it just feels a lot more like a rap song and just kind of like a rap rock sense, and just kind of that standard kind of freak show kind of craziness. Just something that Twisted or like Riff Raff would do, or some of that type of stuff, just in kind of like a more stuffy and just kind of crunk oriented type feel. So that's definitely kind of the thing. Schizo is really like one of the craziest songs on the album. I think apart from like the Get Crunk remix with Mac Lethal, the Vodka Tonic remix, this is definitely one of the craziest songs on the album. And this is kind of like the same sort of stuff that they did on their The Broken album from 2007. So if you want more songs like the Schizo that's on this particular project, this mixtape, I would definitely say to get the Broken from 2007. But this is like a freakish kind of screamo highlight. This is a real kind of manic and crazy kind of club energy. This has like one of the quickest paces on here. It's just really ravenous. Definitely more ravenous than on the 2009 album, where it's pretty crazy on the 2009 album, but I think that version of it's just toned down compared to this one. This one just really is kind of mosh, just like freakishly kind of crazed, kind of manic kind of energy on there. So it's definite highlight. And then Get Crunk is another kind of highlight on here. I mean, all 3 of these are highlights, just the different versions of them that are on this mixtape. But Get Crunk is a lot more Lil Jon sounding. This one just kind of feels like something that Lil Jon did with like Snap Your Fingers or Yeah by Usher or Goodies by Ciara or something like that. It's kind of a more typical Lil Jon type beat. Still kind of a screamo nightclub highlight, but it does kind of have some rave energy. So it's just kind of in that kind of sense. It's just like Lil Jon if he were to do like a rap rock kind of screamo number. That's just kind of the concept about it. But so to talk about the rest of these, I am going to talk about Kill Me Now. Kill Me Now is kind of an almost song. This is kind of like a daytime kind of creepy song. Yeah, Kill Me Now is just kind of a daytime creepy song. It's just a howling kind of song. They just kind of howl on this song with their vocals and that type of stuff. It's just kind of like an awkward sense. It's kind of like seeing a vampire in the daytime is what it really feels like. It's kind of somewhat interestingly awkward. It just kind of has that kind of aspect about it, where it's just kind of one of the more awkward songs on here. It just really feels out of place considering most of their kind of ravenous kind of nightclub energy. But this one definitely feels like in like 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock p.m., just during the daytime, but they don't really make summer kind of hop and bop kind of like bubblegum kind of music. So it's just kind of more just with that kind of pep. They don't really have that kind of pep. So this is just kind of like a brooding kind of summer song, if you can get that. Just the concept of it being for summer, but it just is kind of has a lot of anguish and distortion towards it, that this is kind of different from like the typical summer music that kind of goes along with it. So it's just kind of it's autumn type music, but it's in the summertime. So that's just definitely kind of the thing about it. It's just kind of a howling kind of song. But I just kind of felt like the kind of awkwardness of the song is just kind of an odd one for the placement. So it's kind of an almost song. I mean, thinking about it, it probably should be a song that I prefer, but just kind of takes some getting used to this in terms of that concept of how it kind of goes. But I mean, regardless, this project's going to get a 10 out of 10. It's just kind of one that I'm just kind of getting more used to, just because I can't think of too many songs like this one. That's just kind of the thing. But so these other 10 songs, I mean, the thing about it is the thing about this mixtape is this project's really only up on a playlist on YouTube. I mean, there's some ways to get towards it, but just because this mixtape's not readily available, I have to listen to it because they put all the songs in like an hour and a half long playlist or an hour and a half long video. So I'd have to listen to each one and find the exact spot where the song is. So I'm just going to try to go off of these from memory. I feel like some club songs on here are like A Hoe for Show, Blame It on Tom, and like Blue Steel. Those are all some good highlights. I feel like A Hoe for Show is like a sporadic kind of club cut. Definitely got some electro kind of manic hit type energy. It's just a very nice dance song and it's kind of bop-ish. Yeah, I would say A Hoe for Show is just like a very sporadic club cut. This one's just kind of all over the place. It's kind of electro, kind of manic kind of hit. It's just a nice dance tune, and it's got some real boppish kind of energy. And that's pretty similar to Blame It on Tom. This is another one that really has like a riveting kind of feel towards it. Blame It on Tom is probably one of the best beats on this project. Definitely, it's just a club bop with like a slithering kind of beat. Just really kind of snakes through, and it just has like a real nice energy. It's a real nice dark dance gem, and it's just kind of a dark vanilla bop. I feel like for vanilla club bops, when I talk about those, it just kind of being vanilla. This is like dark vanilla. I mean, you could say chocolate, but that doesn't quite make as much sense. It's just kind of a dark vanilla bop as far as that kind of goes. That's just kind of the concept about it. Definitely one of the best songs on here. Really appreciate that song. I would have to say I think there's like I said there's some ruminating songs on here, and I kind of feel like I think I'm going insane. I think I'm going insane is like a ruminating song that just kind of has like some gloomish kind of day commute kind of energy. It's a paranoid kind of swaggish kind of song, so I definitely feel like this kind of has like that swag of like the way that Tech-9 kind of was back in the late 2000s. It's just kind of a very excellent ruminating song. It kind of has that kind of glum energy. And another one like that is Till Death Do Us Part. I feel like Till Death Do Us Part is like a very nice, gloomy kind of beat. It's just kind of a brooding kind of piano beat on here. Just a really nice, creeping story song. It would be a good one for like a campfire and just ghost stories and that type vibe. Just autumn kind of cool weather type stuff. It's a good change of pace, and it just kind of brings the shrill pretty well. Definitely like the concept of that. Just kind of backyard kind of party vibes and like the cooler weather. A Monster Inside Me. Another ruminating song like that is Monster Inside Me. This is a calmer, kind of creepy, kind of serenading type beat, has some serenading type energy towards it. It's just kind of a gloomy, hypnotic kind of beat. So a lot of these, I think I'm going insane, Till Death Do Us Part, Monster Inside Me, some of those type ones really have some creepy kind of vibes towards them. Just very ruminating. It's just interesting that they pulled these off and just kind of like the sort of stuff that Tech-9 and Hobson and Eminem and NF type do, just in a more kind of more ravenous kind of screamo type sense. They're just kind of cagey and just kind of a lot more schizophrenic, but I do like the concept of some of these as far as how that kind of goes. A good highlight on here that's just kind of a nice cover song that was a good surprise is Low, which is basically a screamo cover of Flow Ride is Low from 2008. So this is definitely a highlight. It's just kind of a jivey, same beat on there. It's a jivey kind of screamo highlight, and it just kind of gives it more of like a cagey kind of raucous feel. So it's just basically if you like Low, but maybe it was too vanilla for you and too kind of basic, I kind of feel like this version of it's just a lot more cagey and just kind of has like a more ravenous kind of screamo type energy. Just an overall highlight. Some other ruminating songs. A good song on here that kind of steps out a bit. It has this ruminating type energy towards it, but it's also a song that steps out is Dying to Live. This is a real nice one. It's just kind of a thought-provoking song, but it's kind of fit for nightclubs. This has a really flashy kind of electro beat on there. So it's kind of one where you want to kind of be in a more introspective and kind of thinking type mindset, but it's also good for stepping out and kind of having a good times, getting some drinks, sparking a blunt, something like that as far as that kind of goes. This is a nice one. Another kind of ruminating type song that has a pretty good pitch towards it is Alone in the Dark. This is kind of a rockish, kind of morose, kind of dark ballad. So this one's kind of more of a ballad. This one's not as much just kind of like a rap type song. It's just kind of a rock type ballad in that sort of sense. A dark ballad, very solo ruminating. This one's not quite as much around people. It's just kind of solo for dolo type stuff. Just kind of walking around or cruising around, that type of stuff, just contemplating, just kind of being more contemplative and brooding. Just kind of one for cooler weather. So it's interesting that this project, it's good to kind of get some of these cooler weather type tunes just for that sort of concept. They took care of the concepts as far as having like a good pitch between the more day kind of songs and the kind of night kind of songs. So they have, like I said before, they had like that pitch of being able to balance these and kind of have two sides of a coin as far as having some personality traits that just kind of work pretty well. This is just an overall good kind of dark, kind of real haunting kind of piano beat on there, just as far as that kind of goes. Blue Steel brings it back to the nightclub. This is like a vanilla nightclub song. Blue Steel kind of has like an oozing beat on here. This is like a very vanilla nightclub song that has some good screamo kind of energy, and it's just an easy song for a regular night out. Would definitely have to say on here. This is kind of one like Blame It on Tom and A Hoe for Show and some of those type ones, like Get Crunk, the version that's on this project. So these are just some good ones. Kind of more, I mean, this one's a little bit more relaxed, but it does still kind of have that energy of like a good kind of crazy night out. So they kind of mix these songs pretty well. I mean, they're not wholesomely in the club every single song, but they do have like that kind of affable energy that showcases the fact that they do kind of have some compellingness about stepping out. And just every single one of these songs that has them going out and stepping out in that kind of feel just captures that energy of just like a pungent kind of night, especially like a Friday night, that type feel towards it. So it's just good to kind of get some of these. It's always kind of a pleasure getting some of these nightclub songs from brokeNCYDE as far as that kind of goes. And I would say Get Crunk, the Mac Lethal Vodka Tonic remix, is pretty much the craziest song on this album apart from Schizo. And it definitely kind of has like some pitch energy. And it's just a great one for getting cranked and having some Friday night kind of fare. This one's probably the one that you should save for like the pitch at night, 10 o'clock p.m. when you're taking those shots and having some mixed drinks and that type of stuff as far as that kind of goes. Yeah, I would say Get Crunk, the Mac Lethal remix, just kind of has like a lot more pretty riveting kind of electronica type feel towards it. It's just kind of an in between of like a crunk core type song and a really kind of turned up kind of techno kind of song as far as that kind of goes. Just definite good one for like a rave or like a dance club that's just kind of more techno sounding and electronic, that sort of sense. That's just a good one. So really, the only two songs on this mixtape I didn't enjoy was just On My Own and then I Don't Know, which I kind of felt like the beat on I Don't Know is a good one. It's just kind of more of like a gloomy kind of personal kind of lyrics that just didn't capture brokeNCYDE's normal moody catchiness. Or I kind of felt like it was a nice one in some senses, but it just kind of the lyricism in the song was just not quite as compelling as they normally are. I mean, it's just kind of one. This one was just kind of a lot more of a regular kind of song that just didn't have like the standard flashiness. It was just kind of a plainer song that more so than what I was looking for. And I feel like On My Own just kind of had an overly upbeat kind of energy that just didn't match brokeNCYDE. This is one where they kind of tried to step out of some of their like normal kind of cagey and kind of schizophrenic kind of raginess and craziness as far as that kind of goes. And this was kind of one that just didn't quite catch as well. I mean, I feel like the kind of manic and kind of sheer energy that they usually have is just more of like a pitch. But both those songs are just kind of odd. But for the most part, yeah, I would say every song on this project, apart from those two songs, were pretty much knocked out of the park as far as that kind of goes. They have their quite crazy club type moments and they're pretty good ruminators. They do have like some brooding kind of personal energy. It's not to say that songs like I Don't Know are interesting, but I feel like that was like the lone one compared to some of the ones they did, like Monster Inside Me, Till Death Do Us Part, Dying to Live, some of those type ones. I think I'm going and saying that just had that energy carried a lot more. So they do. It's just interesting to think they could kind of pull off like the NF and Hobson type vibes because they did it pretty excellently, especially considering that this project came out in 2008. This wasn't expected. They kind of were doing like Eminem Relapse type stuff before that project pretty much came out. So it's just interesting to kind of get some of this grizzled kind of moodiness and have it executed so well. So this mixtape gets a 10 out of 10. In terms of the social score, I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10 also because they've got their pitch drinking songs and Get Crunk, have some women shake their ass type songs, that type of stuff. Just the energy is just off the meter. I mean, they have screamo stuff. They have like the span of keeping you attentive and that type of stuff as far as that kind of goes. I mean, this mixtape doesn't really have any singles, but I would have to say it's just a very low key one. And if you can find this mixtape, I would definitely download it because this is definitely good for a few months worth of weekend type fanfare, especially in the summer and fall and that type of stuff. So it's just good for that. In terms of the future, like brokeNCYDE's been kind of quiet recently, but I guess I didn't realize this, but they did drop an EP back in late 2022. So I'm going to have to check that out and see some more stuff. That's just kind of the thing. But yeah, this is definitely a pretty classic mixtape. Definitely wall to wall. This is a good overall, this sheer highlight.